So if you could be here around 9, that would be great. Okay?
Well, listen here.
Hello, and welcome to 90 Day Fiancé MK. I'm Mr. O, and today, Miss H and I will be discussing Season 7, Tell All Part 3 of Before 90 Days. In this episode, Niles doesn't end up fighting Adnan, but still has strong words for everyone else. Vanja shares a big violation from Josko. Veah has no regrets about bringing Roy to South Africa, and everybody gets another chance to yell at Loren. We'll be back again next week to talk about Part 4, and we're also back on our other channel, Love After Lockup MK, covering the new season of Love During Lockup. Alright, thanks for listening, stay safe, and enjoy!
Hello, Mr. O.
Hello, Miss H.
How are you today?
I'm doing pretty good. We got our second quarter ended, which is usually... That means my plate has to be clear because all the grades are in. So
Right.
I'm like, oh, yes, no grading to do now that I'm done with this. And then it starts stacking up again tomorrow. So,
Oh, I know. I was going to say, I remember those days. It'd be like, oh, yeah, we got progress reports due or something. And then literally 2 weeks later, I'm like in the same boat.
yes, exactly. Exactly. Oh, man. So I wanted to start recording this one. We started it because as soon as we got on the call before we hit record, you had thoughts about the formatting of what they did here this week. It was so weird.
It was so weird. It's like they're trying to force us to watch a version of Pillow Talk. And I intentionally never watch Pillow Talk. So this was painful. And in fact, I'll be honest, I didn't watch the whole thing. I watched about 40 minutes, enough to be like, this is zero value add. Like, yeah, I don't care about these random past castmates and ancillary characters' opinions on these things. And they're contributing nothing that we don't already react to. Nothing. And then having Vanja and Niles there, it's like, okay, also, these two are already kind of two sides of the same coin. It doesn't create any controversy. Vanja, I don't know, she certainly was vocal, but I wouldn't say controversial, except for when paired with Adnan, and Adnan's nowhere to be seen. Mm-hmm. And then Niles is just like, we need to stop giving Niles a platform at this point, because also, like, what's the value add here?
We'll get there. I just feel like the entire 90 Day franchise has decided, much like every tech company is like, let's put AI in it. Let's use AI. Like, let's just, how can I make this refrigerator better? AI? Well, we'll just throw AI in it. That the 90 Day version of that is, put them in a house together. I don't know. Just stick everybody in one house. That's our idea.
Yeah.
Make it fresh and new.
Right. I would say that the most, I don't want to say exciting because it wasn't exciting, but controversial thing was the fact that Tim refused to take one of the vegan cookies Vanja made because he didn't want to feel obligated to be nice when he was talking about her. And that was about it. That was like the most controversial thing I saw on this part. And you know, we have another part of the tell-all next week, and so I fear that they're going to shove this Pillow Talk-like show again down our throats. Yeah.
So, I mean, and you mentioned Niles, and Niles being, like, a lot. And I feel like he comes up a lot on everybody's radar, right? And he's certainly this time, so, like, little bit, because we started the episode with him, you know, staring at Adnan, like, and just says, you better hope I don't see you in public. And then, like, he says, I hope he lives in Texas now. I hope he doesn't talk to a Texan like that, because they'll be finding pieces of his body all over the place. Right. And it's just like, and then he just like, I understand when it's Adnan, right? When he's standing up to Adnan, it's very much like, ooh, this guy, somebody's giving it as good as Adnan can get. But then he sticks his nose in like literally everybody's business, and not just like a little like asking questions like, you're a terrible person. Don't even look at me because you're such a shithead. I don't even want to think about your broke ass, bitch ass. It was like, dude, chill the fuck out. Like nobody did anything to you.
Yeah, and it was also very weird when it's like he's offending other people because And I don't think it's intentional, and I get accused of this too, but coming off as like very condescending.
Very
condescending.
Yeah.
And it certainly came off that way. And I can relate to, how other people interpret it that way, even though you're not intending it to. But also, it's like Niles just needs to back off because, I mean, at least Veah kind of called him out on it. Like, you're talking to me like I'm stupid. Like, I'm not stupid. Like, let's just stop this now.
Right. And it's especially infuriating when he does that for stuff that you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know this person. You don't know.
He's not an expert at any of these things.
Right.
Yeah. So it is weird that they decided, okay, let's do a pillow talk house. And then we'll go one step further by throwing in the castmates in there, but not all the castmates, just two of the castmates. But also
the castmates that everybody is like the least likely to insult, right?
Right. Yeah. Like, I think everybody is on their best behavior with Niles because no one wants to interpret like being offensive to someone who has autism, right?
Yeah, just being a bully to an autistic person.
Kind of being able to tease out what is things that are a result of his autism versus what is just Niles, right? And so no one's going to ruffle any feathers and they're going to handle him with kid gloves. And then Vanja, she's, like I said, the only time we've seen her somewhat controversial is towards Adnan. And that's because she interprets all of his stuff as misogynist. And so it's like, yeah, you kind of got not the greatest sampling of the cast members. I kind of get what they're going for. And I know this is kind of a controversial opinion, like some people agree and some people don't. But I really have been enjoying The Last Resort. And part of it that I kind of look forward to more so than the show itself is the between the sheets. And I think it's not just a straight up pillow talk situation. It's like them giving inside like scoop of what was going on, giving their perspective, them kind of watching, other things that they didn't see before to kind of put things in context. And, I think that is really interesting. So if they manage to do something like a between the sheets, I could be very easily convinced to follow that kind of format.
I could see that because that's more like behind the scenes stuff. Let's reveal a bit more and not just like, here's some people that were entertaining on the show before giving their, and there's no guarantee when you do pillow talk that their commentary is going to be insightful or funny or like things that none of those things are what made them maybe whatever you want to say stars of the show. It wasn't like their quick wit and their jokiness. It was just like they were either angry or this or that. And but you're between the sheets when you're the people themselves. That's not it. Then we know they have more insight into what happened. Yeah.
And this kind of goes back to what I was saying about value add, right? Sure. Between the sheets, value add. It gives you more into what's going on. Someone's random snarky, and I know we're saying that as a podcast who covers them, but random snarky opinions is like, not so much of a value add on Pillow Talk.
Right, but that's because they aren't as funny as us. But
sure.
No, but I think that's where people often find are so frustrated with these tell-alls is they feel like it's an opportunity for value add. It's an opportunity to know more about what's going on, to get people's actual deep opinions or actual opinions instead of their thing. It's called the couples tell-all, right? The tell-all. I want your actual opinion. And every time it just is like, so we'll just have to leave that there. Moving on, right? And that's what frustrates everybody.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's just jump into this episode and let's actually talk about something that we didn't know before, and that has to do with Vanja and her new guy, Josko. So Vanja and Josko are then brought on, and Sean introduces Bojo to Josko for no reason.
Yeah, it was weird. Why was Bojo still here? I don't know why he's still here.
Why didn't they just let him leave to a stupid movie meeting or whatever the heck he was doing? Yeah. So they're cordial, and Sean asks what Josko thought of Vanya's relationship with Bojo, and Josko says it was unreal and it was unfair. Bojo says that no one deserves it and it was unfair. Josko says that Vanja is a real gem even though they're not together now. Josko sees Vanya's conversation with Sanella in a recap clip over Josko accusing her of being needy and breaking things off. Sean asks if he saw the breakup the same way as Vanya, and Josko says that they were talking twice a day, and Vanya never asked about his child. He says that he didn't call one day because his kid was sick, and when they did talk, Vanya was upset with him for not calling her. Vanya accuses him of hanging up after this so-called conversation and not trying to communicate again. Vanya says that they were making plans for his child, and she's just confused that he didn't think that she cared. Niles interjects, well, it's going to be a theme of this episode, that Vanya probably needs to find something in between our slow, non-committal moving Bojo and the fast-acting Josko. Sean asks which relationship was more frustrating for her, and Vanya says that she gave more to Josko, so it hurts more even though they were both frustrating. Vanya starts to cry and says that being intimate with someone is a big deal for her, and Sanella points out that she feels used. Josko is asked his reaction to that, and he disagrees. He says that he came to Florida to build on what they had, and he had no intention of breaking up with her, especially when they slept together. Even though Vanya seemed to feel a way about giving herself to someone, Josko then goes into random detail that maybe they weren't physically compatible, which is why they only had sex in 2 positions. And Vanya is offended that he's talking about their sex life publicly, and she tries to stop him. But then, he doesn't stop, and this opens the door for Vanya sharing that Josko recorded their sex without her knowing it. He was proud of his actions afterwards and told her about it. He claims that they had talked about it before, but Vanya says it's one thing to talk about it and another to consent to it. Vanya made him delete it. Josko says that he thought she had consented, but he saw that she was devastated when he told her, and he deleted it from his device and the cloud, he claims. Vanya says that the second you give someone a chance, something like this happens, and she's sobbing, saying you just can't trust anyone anymore. Josko is prompted by Sean to apologize, and he says that he's not proud of it, and it was a mistake, and he's sorry for violating her trust and privacy. Adnan interjects that it's not legal. He knows. And he actually takes a moment to tell Vanya he's sorry for her. Vanya then admits that she went back to Croatia after Josko visited Florida, hoping that she could possibly reconcile with Josko. And they hung out on the beach, and they actually made out. But nothing really progressed after that. Josko says that Vanya traveled all that way, so he did want to see her. But after they kissed, he didn't want to see her again just because he didn't want to give her false hope. Niles asks if he expected sex on the Croatia trip, and Josko was offended by the lack of respect in that question. And Adnan and Niles both tell him not to talk to them about respect, especially after the filming incident. Josko says at this point he doesn't love her, but he wishes the best for her. Vanya's crying because she says she gives her all in relationships and she gets crap back. Brian says that we create our own problems, so maybe it's her choices. Niles says that she has to just continue doing the right things, and he assures her it'll work out, just like it's worked out with him and Matilda. Josko maintains that the only mistake he made in this relationship was making the video, but he says that he's always had the best intentions. We literally get nothing more with Bojo, so I don't know why we brought him back
had to sit here and listen to this conversation.
Yeah. Josko didn't really show a whole lot of emotion in this, and so
no, really not.
But at the same time, his apology absolutely textbook what you're supposed to say, right?
Sure. Yes.
But because there's no emotion behind it, did you believe that this was a genuine apology?
Yeah, it's definitely hard to say because if he doesn't do emotion. But you're right. He did not do the I'm sorry she was offended at this, right? He was like, I was wrong. I clearly was mistaken with what I thought was consent, and that was bad, and I still regret that.
Yeah.
But I feel like we've never seen Josko without his mask, and I feel like that's kind of part of what's going on here. Like we talked about Niles masking, but this dude clearly has a performative, public. I am very straightforward. I will talk into the camera straight, and I will say what I need to say, and it will just be like this, and that will be that. Like, and that's clearly not the way he was with Vanja the whole time, especially in private, right?
Right.
Because he was clearly making snarky, nasty comments about when she was upset about him not calling or whatever. So
yeah,
I tend to think it is. I do kind of buy what he said. It doesn't make it right. But I do kind of buy the idea that they had talked about, like, whoa, what if we filmed it one time? And she'd be like, oh, that'd be kind of hot. And so then he did it. And she was like, I didn't mean this time. Like, I didn't mean nearby. And then him just that's just a miscommunication that gets out of hand. So I definitely think that everybody else was, even with that detail, they're just way over the top with, like, you are human's greatest monster. Because you did this thing that you need to apologize. After he apologized like 4 times. Like, that was another thing that Niles kept doing, is he kept asking people to apologize immediately after they apologized. And it's like, what are you doing? So I think it is. I think she's just camera nervous, honestly.
Right. I do believe what you're saying. Like, it was an honest misunderstanding, because when he told his side, Vanja never refuted that they had talked about it before. Right. But I think that the miscommunication or the misunderstanding is he thought, oh, we've talked about it before. She seemed like she was open to the idea, right? Meaning in his mind, like, okay, she's open. You know, we were talking about it. Great. That's a go. Right. And she is just mortified. I think she's one of those people that that could be something that happens way further down the line. But, you know, she just seems like sex to her is just so sacred, and in a way where, you know, it's only meant to be like very private. Like, she's comfortable talking about their sex life in public. It should be just between her and someone else. Right. I'm surprised that she even like thought that was interesting of an idea if they had a conversation about it before. But this is something that you could probably talk her into after you've been dating and having sex for a couple years. Right.
Yeah, that's probably true. Yeah, she's very, very much talks about like the emotion behind sex, right? And how you have to have that emotional connection. And it's so much better when you have that emotional connection. But then the one thing I thought was kind of, not to be, no pun, dickish of him was like, did the part where he just randomly throws out, which had to be an editing thing. You don't randomly throw out like, oh yeah, by the way, the sex was bad because my dick is huge and you could only do it a couple different ways. So, you know.
Which is also like, I call shenanigans. I don't know. I'm going to assume, you know, that he's a grower, not a shower, but we saw him in his little briefs and there was nothing interesting going on below the belt.
Yeah. I mean, he could have also, in theory, meant that he is a physically large man. Like, not that his right. And so,
he
like,
just squishes her.
He just squishes her. Yeah. There's only so many things you can do. Which is like, that goes into it. But yeah, this just seemed like a lot of time. I don't think it's different with Bojo. A lot of time and a lot of energy on just somebody, they just didn't want the same thing. And so they broke up, and like, that's a lot of he said, she said over a pretty standard breakup, like for things like that.
It was funny because I thought that Bojo and Josko both approached this tell-all very similarly, other than Bojo's random freak out moment where he had to get the fuck out of there. But they were both like very like, yes, I am the asshole. I suck. You deserve so much better than me. You know, what I did was unfair, you know, peace be with you or whatever, you know, and I felt like they both had that kind of persona, like never saying that they were right. They felt justified. They were very much like, no, I suck. Like, I did you wrong, you know?
Yeah, I fucked up. Yeah. But then it gets to that, right? Like, that's a thing I've heard from, you know, women all the time, is this idea of like, what does every man just suck? Because why does this keep happening? Why is it every single person that this, you know, this kind of thing happens? And at that point, I kind of remember, I don't think it's her fault. And, everybody on stage was like, it's not your fault.
Oh, except for Brian.
Oh, yeah. Well, every woman is wrong. And no matter what, if something went wrong, woman's fault. That was the woman's fault. I don't know what you're talking about.
I know. Brian's such a hypocrite. He's like, oh, well, we create our own problems. Maybe it's your choices. It's like, hello, says man who's been married and engaged more than anyone on this stage combined.
True. I just get the impression that she is attracted to a certain personality type that tends to come with this kind of behavior. Like, this is the negative side.
That's completely believable. Because if you look at, Bojo and Josko, very similar, like how they handled this.
Yeah. Right. All right. So another person that got yelled at a lot on stage was Loren again.
Oh, gosh.
So we come back around to this episode to Loren and Faith, and they bring Esther back on the stage. So Sean tells us that they want to talk about the flirting or whatever he did outside the drag club, and we see a flashback of the scenes when, I don't know, when it happened, when they were figuring it out. They start asking about his shifting story, how at first in the cab, he was like, I didn't do anything wrong. And then later he was like, oh, this is what it was. And he says that the reason this story shifted is because in the cab, he didn't know what she was talking about because the woman he had, quote unquote, flirted with was a woman, not a drag queen. And so when she was like, I saw you flirting with a drag queen, he was like, how? What are you talking about? How could you catch? And this is the part that drove me crazy. Said, how could you catch me flirting with someone I never talked to? And like both, specifically not everybody, but specifically Niles and Joey were like, you said catch. You can't catch you if you didn't do anything wrong. You got it. That's an admission. You admitted you were wrong. And it was just like, he's like, what? What are you talking about? So Esther says that like, Esther then kind of steps up because Niles is getting really heated right here and says, well, you clearly just do not like Loren. And so it does not matter what he says. You're going to attack him for lying. And which personal opinion was totally accurate. But Niles was like, oh, you have no idea how bad that makes you look because everybody on stage hates him too. So Vanja then steps into play, which she calls his devil's advocate. And she's like, I get accused of flirting all the time because I'm Eastern European. We kiss, we hug, we do lots of stuff. And Loren adds that like he did touch the girl's face, but he was totally wasted and wasn't trying to touch her face. He was going for her shoulder and missed. So he's like, it was nothing. I was just like, oh, honey, I'm too old for you. Like and I have a girlfriend. It was supposed to be, oh, honey, thanks, but I have a girlfriend. Anyway, then we kind of come back. Sean asks, Esther about, well, who specifically? Because she said something about everybody attacking Loren. She said, who do you think is attacking him? And she kind of made a broad gesture that like sectioned off a piece of stage, which I don't know how big this section was, but it definitely included Adnan and Niles.
Yeah.
So Adnan's like, I'm not attacking him at all. And she's like, you wouldn't even shake his hand. What do you mean you weren't attacking him? Adnan says that Loren's relationship won't work because he's not a man. And Loren's just like, I'm confused. I am a man? What? And finally, that he's not a real man is something that Adnan and Niles on the same team together on. Yeah. Esther calls them both closed-minded, but Niles is like, well, if being open-minded has to mean I like this guy, then no, I don't want to be open-minded. So then that's the part he said. He keeps insisting that Loren say, why haven't you said you're sorry? And Loren's like, I have said I'm sorry a lot of times. Okay, fine. I'll say it again. And he says sorry. And Faith, says, yeah, he says he's sorry a lot, but things never get better. And then she's again in tears. And that's when focus kind of shifts back to her. Adnan yells at her for crying. It's just like, why are you crying? This guy's a loser. He's not worth, you're crying like you lost $10 million. You just lost some loser. Who cares about this loser? And Sean then comes and asks if they further discuss how they would legally get married, if and how they would legally get married. So Loren seems to have done his research now and says in both Taiwan and Thailand, they recently changed the law. He can get married to Faith. And if they do that, then they can get married and they can start the visa process. No talk of moving to the Philippines at all. He mentioned getting a K3. So Sean asks, well, how can you get married if Faith doesn't even think you're engaged? And he's like, well, she'll have to decide that before we go on our trip to Thailand. which apparently this is where it got confusing because evidently they already have a trip to Thailand planned together.
Yeah.
And
which he's funding. I'm like, with what money? Okay.
Yeah, with that he's funding, and he's just saying, listen, if we go and we get married, great. If we go and have a vacation and we don't get married, also great. But Faith seems to think that this is the first time he's mentioned getting married on this trip. And he's just like, what? No, I definitely told you that. If I had my phone, I would bring it out right now and show you that. So Sean asked Loren Sean asked them if Faith sees a future with them together, and that she says she loves Loren, but doesn't think the situation is realistic, and maybe they should just be friends. Loren isn't even fazed by that. He seems fine. He's just like, well, you've already been acting weird. I knew something was up. Why didn't you just tell me this earlier? But she didn't tell him because she still hasn't made up her mind, and she keeps just calling it a difficult decision, even though I was very confused because it sounded like that she was like, I want to break up with you. And he's like, oh, why didn't you just tell me that earlier? And she's like, because I'm not sure I want to break up with you. I'm like,
yeah.
That was, Vanja tries to help her out, giving advice. And she's like, everything there is to know about this guy. There's not going to be new information coming out. So she finally tells everyone, stop pushing me to make a decision. And then as kind of crosstalk on Tage, she's like, well, then fine. It's a no. Which I guess means breaking up, but I also feel like she's going to change her mind again in 3 seconds. So at this point, I mean, I feel like at the end here, not that Loren is a good dude, but Faith needs to make a decision, right?
No, she absolutely does. And it's not fair of her to just kind of keep him, kind of hanging. What I thought was interesting is that it seemed like this was supposed to be kind of the Loren redemption episode in a weird way. Like, Esther's like, I'm gonna defend my friend now. It's like, this is not your first time on this stage.
Yeah, you've already had a chance to do that?
Right. Like, I don't understand what you're gonna do any differently, except for, I swear, if you told me these were two different friends, I would have totally believed that. Because it just didn't seem like the same friend was sticking up for him now, as opposed to throwing him under the bus.
Oh, yeah.
Before.
The last time she was on the stage, it was very much like, they're like, he's a liar. And she's like, oh, yeah, he kind of does lie a lot.
She's like, no, he's just really dumb. That was like the defense. Like, no, he's just really gullible and dumb.
Yeah, but he's manipulating her. She's like, he is not smart enough to manipulate her, man.
Right.
Like, get out of here.
Yeah. And so this time around, it's kind of like, okay, well, she had a different strategy for defending him. I think her strategy this time was to go after everyone else and try to get the focus and heat off of Loren. But at the same time, like, it's not fair for Faith to kind of string along Loren too. And I wonder if it all stems from her stated insecurities that she won't find anyone else, right?
I mean, I would imagine that's it. But it's one of those things that they gave Joey such a hard time.
Yeah.
Over like 3 extra months or 5 extra months that he's just like, I'm not quite ready. I'll do it when I do it. And she's just like, how is this not a shit or get off the pot situation? You either have to let this guy go or you have to commit to him. I think you should probably let him go.
Yeah.
Because he's not a great dude, but you can't string him along like this, no matter who he is.
Yeah, and I think she's starting to realize that, maybe that's not a great look, and that's why she's trying to, like, break it off. But before, I think she felt that she could get away with it because he is so desperate for her. He definitely comes off as very available.
Yeah, but he's just so... One of the weird things about him in this one is he comes across, like, before, when he was in the show, when we were on the seasons, he seemed, to us at least, very desperate to stay in the Philippines. Yes. That was priority number one. I will do whatever it takes to stay in the Philippines. Now, I mean, maybe it's because he's back home and that he's reached a mental state where that's no longer a possibility. He's just like, we can get married. That's fine. I don't want to get married. Yeah. That's fine too. He's just like, oh no, whatever. Okay. That's fine. Like, just going along. Which is like weird. And also I'm not sure how much he really means that. How much of that is him putting it on, just being, no, I'm a generous, open-minded guy. We can do whatever you want to do. Like, it's kind of trying to make that part of his redemption tour.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I definitely don't think that the verb caught means that there's an admission of guilt.
No. Speaking of redemption tour, I do not have much to say about Adnan and Tiger Lily because they were barely in this episode. And when they were always being supportive of the cast members. And, you know, like with Adnan, like apologizing to Vanja, saying he's sorry that she had to go through this like sex tape, you know, debacle. And it's kind of like you were mocking her literally the previous
the
episode.
head bob thing.
Right. So it's just, yeah, I thought it was interesting just how, you know, I don't know if it's editing or if this is really how they all were, like just all of a sudden flipped personalities halfway through this tell-all.
Yeah, and I wonder if just how much of it is kind of that sense of morality that he has, right? Where he's like, well, yeah, you're a garbage human, but even garbage humans don't deserve that to happen to them, right?
Right.
And like, some, you know, kind of like how we're sitting here being like, Loren's terrible, but he doesn't deserve to be strung along. No. Right. And that's the same. Like, I wonder if it's a similar vibe. And that's where that change of heart came from.
Yeah. So let's talk about Veah and Sunny. So we bring up the whole Rory X situation and get a recap of how Sunny found out that Rory was in South Africa. Sunny says that he was super jealous, because who brings their ex to meet someone new? Brian can't believe Sunny is supposed to accept that, and Joe thinks that it's a rough and difficult start. Veah is asked why Rory was the one that came with her, and Veah said that she actually tried to get other people to come, and no one else was free to go. So it just worked out that Rory was kind of the only one available. And Adnan points out, and Brian agrees, that the picture of her and Rory, you know, when that Sunny saw and found out, they kind of looked cozy. So no one is siding with Veah on this one. Veah doesn't like that Niles is treating her like she's stupid when he asks if she thinks it's right if she just puts logic front and center. Do you think that you're right? So Veah digs in and says that she has no regrets. We then get Rory on video chat. Adnan asks why they broke up, and Rory says that they were just better off as friends and they just weren't happy as a couple. And then Adnan randomly screams, "The door is opening!" And a dog
I did notice the door opening, yes.
Yes, but it's because he has a dog that's breaking in. And then we kind of see like parts of the dog like in the screen, so his dog is just kind of roaming around in the background. Niles says that they are both going to look bad because of this whole situation. And Veah says that they all get along now. It doesn't matter. And the only thing she regrets in this whole situation is just not telling Sunny sooner. Adnan insists that she just picks one man and then cuts off the other one. And Joe says that this whole situation is embarrassing for Sunny to bring the ex along. Everyone thinks that Veah must have feelings for Rory. And Veah insists that Sunny sees that they don't love each other like that. Sean asks about Rory's snide comment on Sunny's social media, and Rory claims to have just posted a ha-ha at Sunny's barrage of selfies because Rory can't understand why someone would take so many pictures of themselves because he's the opposite when it comes to the social media use. But he also admits that he was trying to poke the bear. Sunny stands up for Veah, saying he's okay with her friendship with Rory because they are in a good place right now. So then that's how we kind of end things. So do you really think that Sunny is just all of a sudden okay? The three of them are okay? Or this was also kind of, they didn't really explain this much, but it doesn't sound like Rory even lives in Florida. He was in
Ohio.
Yes, yeah. They were saying he was from Ohio, and Veah's in Florida. So do you think that Sunny is really, truly trusting of them? Or is he just like, oh, whatever, nothing's going to happen because they're physically distanced from one another?
No, because he'd be upset. There's definitely things that can happen at a distance that he would be upset about, right? Sure. That he would also consider cheating, but I would consider cheating, right? Yeah, you can certainly do that. And so that's still a possibility. I think he just actually got some time to see them together and to see them together with him around right? That was like, he just kept saying, I just need reassurance. I need reassurance. And like seeing them act not flirty, like friends, like brother and sister, probably, right? Was like, oh yeah, no, I have nothing to worry about here. And like, I don't think that's an act that they put on. And so I think she's Veah's kind of justified and like, or at least vindicated with that, because that's kind of what she always said. If he just would like stop being jealous and like actually come hang out with us, or come let him be around and not just be a complete dick when he's around, he'll see that this is not a thing that's going to go anywhere. That seems to be where it is. I don't think that being physically distant and so they never actually see each other is that, you know, whatever it is, it probably helps. But yeah, it just keeps him from being what, as Adnan said, the spare tire.
Right. Yeah, I think it's easy for him to not be the spare tire if he's not physically in the space as well. Right. But kind of going to this, switching gears to the social media thing. But okay, great. You're not in love with her. You just want to be friends. You want the best for her. Why are you trying to poke the bear?
Oh, I think he pokes all the bears. I think he gives everybody shit. I think he's kind of a little bit of a trolly asshole. And is like, well, give him shit. He's going to post something, I'm going to call him lame. Like, that's what I do. So a little bit of that, a little bit of testing him to see like what it is. Because I think at the end of the day, I just get the impression that this is a guy that knows Veah is not for him and Veah knows he's not for her. But because of what they had, and especially because of what they lost, right? I feel like he still has a feeling of like responsibility that she's okay. And so I think that's kind of it. Is kind of like, so it's like he has to like vet the boyfriends and see how they're going to react a little bit when they get a little bit of shit. Like, how's this going to go over? But also he might've just been high and thought it was funny. Like that's, although from Rory's perspective, from what we've seen of Rory, I don't think he would hide it if he was high. And he's like, why'd you do that? And he's like, I don't know, I was super high and it sounded funny. Like, but yeah, I thought that, but I also thought, I mean, what did you think with everybody else and their reaction, especially when she was like, I didn't have any regrets about bringing him. Do you think she should have had regrets about bringing him?
Yeah.
And not the way she brought him. I think everybody agrees, like, you should have told Sonny he was coming is a universal, like, even she admits that, but like bringing him at all, especially when you hear that out, that like, there were other people that said no first.
Right. I don't know. I think she should have just tried harder. Right? Finding someone. I don't know. I feel like she could have tried harder. I get that she's asked someone, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of felt like that Sonny's reaction when he found out about them there together kind of was like, yeah, that's why he's here, because I might do something wrong and you might storm out and scream at me and threaten to break up with me and leave me alone in South Africa and I have no idea what the hell I'm doing. Because like the other thing, people were like, well, you just wanted to be with Rory all the time. And it was like, did she? From what we saw, she abandoned him at the airport and then just like didn't meet up with him again until like days later.
Right. So yeah, I mean, there was nothing inappropriate, and Rory did seem to be okay with kind of not hearing from her. Mm-hmm. All right. So, is that all we saw? Yeah.
That is it.
Did we get any Brian Ingrid on this one?
No, we're going to get Brian and Ingrid next time. And I'm assuming next time we're also going to have that same deal where we have like the half and half pillow talk after the actual thing. They just got to, this time of year always gets weird because they never put an episode on against Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
And so, but they also don't want to now, like if they would have made it a 3-part tell-all, which is all the footage they have that's fit to air, right? Because they only have one more hour. Then that meant what they would have had to start the new season and then do one episode and then take a break. Whereas if they pad it out, but then I'm also like, you know what else they could have probably done?
Take a break.
You know what else? Yeah, you know, I was like, what else we could have done? We probably could have shortened that entire season that we just watched by about 3 or 4 episodes.
Yeah, right. Oh my gosh, it was kind of never ending. I kind of feel like they could have, if they really didn't want to skip, just had like a recap episode or, highlights or something.
Yeah, but that's what they're going to do. But are we going to do highlights of one episode because it's a new season. You only have one episode.
I don't
so they just wanted to get it too, so that the gap between the seasons is that Super Bowl Sunday. But I don't know. We're getting more Brian and Ingrid next time. It looked like it was mostly Brian and Ingrid next time, to be honest. I don't know that we saw anybody else in the preview.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think we have much to say, I guess. Maybe. I
don't know. I'm sure Brian has some women's is evil stuff that he can pull out on Ingrid again. So.
All right. Who was your student of the week this week?
I'm going to say Veah because I think she did a good job, not necessarily defending herself, but justifying her actions, and also called Niles out for being like, "Don't talk to me like I'm stupid."
Yeah.
I think that was the strongest thing anybody said to Niles, and it was literally the only thing that he actually heard and was like, "Oh, okay, maybe I'm out of bounds here."
Right. This was so hard. And I mean, I guess just by process of elimination, Veah and Vanja, Vanja, I guess she was trying to keep things private, and only when things kind of were like, okay, we're opening up a can of worms, all right, did she reveal. But she was trying to have some sense of privacy there. I mean, I'm not even super sold on that pick. Like I said, this was a tough one. No one really did anything that great. Except for weirdly Adnan, I guess, for being supportive.
Yeah, but we still started off with him
being an ass, yeah.
Being an ass, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right, what about your dunce?
I'm going to say Niles, because we usually give dunce to people who do not stay in their lane.
Right.
And just put their nose in where they don't belong. That's all he did the entire time.
Yep, I agree. And so that's what I'm saying. Okay, I get it. You're speaking your truth. And a lot of the times his truth is, I would say, the general population's truth. But he's just, he's going too far now. So
he just always takes it one step farther than it needs to go.
Right. Okay. What about your life lesson then?
So life lesson is be careful with things around consent where it can be done before. There's lots of things we can do in the bedroom where you start to do it and it's before the act is done, the other person has a chance to be like, no, stay away from there. We're not going there. Right.
Yeah.
And so when it's that doesn't mean that it's something they didn't know was happening until after it's done. You don't need to get consent prior to it. That still is that momentary consent because I've known many people who are like, I'm down to be filmed, but not today. I'm feeling fat. I don't want to, I'm not feeling good. I haven't showered. I haven't showered since yesterday. Don't film me now. What are you doing?
Right. And that's not even filming sexually. That's just in life.
That's just, don't take my picture. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, well, that kind of leads into my life lesson. There's no room to judge when it comes to people's relationships with social media. You are going to have the spectrum of people who, document everything and people who have almost zero of a presence. And that doesn't make one group better or worse than the other. So Rory just needs to calm himself and not be making fun of Sunny.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. All right. So we have one more episode of this tell-all, apparently. So
yes, one more of these tell-alls. Who knows how long it'll actually be before they bail to this pillow talk football game that apparently is going to happen. But
all right. So until then.
All right. We'll talk to everybody then.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.